Hello everyone, this is your boy Nino Gonzalez, Weather X45, and we're going to talk about how did Cold From Nolan affected the northeast coast. And I want to show you something right behind me from the window. As you can see, there is snow coming down a lot. And I mean a lot of snow coming down. I don't know if you can see that in the camera right here, but look at that. I don't know if you can see the camera, like in the camera correctly. It's actually snowing pretty significant. Just moderate snow. 1 to 3 inches. But let's go to Cold From Nolan. Okay, so how did Polar Vortex Nolan, which was the U.S. model, the U.S. model was suggesting that this will be a polar vortex, and they were correct. This was a polar vortex. So how did this ginormous 20,000 mile polar vortex affected the northeast coast, which is known as Nolan? How did it affect the northeast coast? So let me bend this camera a little better. Okay, so how did it affect? Well, you had 20 to 30 below degrees Fahrenheit of wind chills. But in the Canadas, which is in Canada, they had temperatures that was below 35 to below 45 degrees. That is extremely dangerous, frigid air. Extremely cold. This is going to be one of the history books to be one of the most powerful cold front to ever hit in the region of the Northeast. This was the most powerful cold front that ever hit. It hit really hard. It was even worse than Mavili and Cold Front Yard. Bang, bang. Right in the history books. Now, I want to show you how the polar vortex actually hit the Northeast. So, let's start with Friday. Well, not Friday. Let's start with mid-Saturday. Mid-Saturday to Saturday night. From Saturday night, so I'm going to put a little N for Saturday night to Sunday morning. Okay, so this marker is not really responsive, so give me a sec. Ding, 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 better marker. Okay, so right here what I put, mid-Saturday to Saturday night to Sunday morning. So I'm going to draw, like I always do, North America. So I'm going to draw a nice little North America. And we're going to go like that. And then we're going to go like that. Okay, there we go. Alright, so just to give you a little better hit, a hit tip. This is New York, this is Florida, and this is Alaska right here. So this is Alaska, New York City, and this is Florida. And then right here in the bottom here, this is Mexico. Right here, this is Mexico. So the polar vortex actually started right over here. So this is known as Nolan. So we have this big Arctic air, and it's so big that it went from 20,000 miles around the 99% inch corridor. So I put 20,000 miles around the 99% inch corridor. It was so massive. So this was a super cold front that brought gale winds. All the strong winds that came around this northeast, it basically came from a storm from Florida. There was like a little kind of winter storm, and it was known as Winter Storm Mars. So then as it like dissipated from the middays, after a day from the weekends, it started to weaken, but then a lot of rain came, and then what happened was wind started shivering. So the jet stream started to bounce around like crazy. Like I always say, when there's a polar vortex, the jet stream starts to jump around like crazy. It goes down, make a dip, and then it goes like this. Just like that. So that's the jet stream right here. So you have the jet stream right here that makes a little big ice cream dip. So think about an ice cream dip cone. for example. That was the jet stream. And then what happened was all this wind shear came from the west. All this wind shear came and joined with the polar vortex. And what happened was strong upper ground blizzard condition winds started to form around the candidates. They had 35 to 45 below degrees Fahrenheit. As you go really up high from Canada, it's extremely dangerous, like cold. And all this strong wind starts to participate around with this polar vortex. And as this polar vortex starts to participate in with that wind shear, what happens is it starts to get even bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Boom! New York. Bigger. Warm air, a little bit of warm air starts to dip in like this. And then you have cool air in Florida. And all that cool air, never seen before. 45 degrees from Jacksonville, Florida. 45 degrees. Broke the record from that Saturday to Sunday, Valentine's Day. 45 degrees in Florida. We never had 45 degrees or 50 degrees in Florida. Only temperatures that are in for Florida was only 60 degrees, mid 60s or mid 50s, but 50 to 45, it's surprising. So this is a big extreme polar vortex that hit in this area. This is how massive it was. You saw all that circle, that scribble I basically made. That's how massive this polar vortex was. It covered a mile. 2,000 miles around the 99-inch corridor, right to New York City. You had temperatures -5 degrees if you go up and around like in the Bronx, and then go up to Connecticut, then going up to Albany, Boston. Oh my God. Let's bring about Boston, shall we? Boston broke the record since 1926 of a very cold, strong air, which was Jacksonville. It broke the record. It was really, really, really bad, this polar vortex, and it was very dangerous. Do you know how many people died in this polar vortex? And this is really, really, really diminishing crazy. 30 people died from this massive cold air. And whoever lived in the upstate New York, you had lake effect snow. That's where a lot of deaths were reported. There was a truck accident that caused 3 lives away from their family, and it's a really sad event. This polar vortex, Nolan, was one of the history books because it's gonna be the biggest history books. It was a plunger. It was one of the most plungest historic cold air that was even worse than 2014 of January. A lot of people were in fear of it, and look, the U.S. motto won the bet of this little idea that this will be a polar vortex, and it was because there was Arctic air. And what Arctic air is like basically a cold air. Remember I showed you in one of the last videos what is a polar vortex, and check out what is the Great Polar Vortex. I want to tell you something. The Great Polar Vortex was in Canada. That was where it was extremely frigid and deadly. The Great Polar Vortex was in parts of upstate New York because of lake effect snow. There was a lot of ice. That was about 38 centimeters of ice. 38! One of the history books. Breathing cold, frigid moisture starts to wild up into the troposphere. And then the stratosphere, all that cold air dives down into the troposphere. And then what happens is the warm air starts to weaken, and all the Arctic air starts to push out. So it starts to spin around and spin around and spin around, plays out, spin around, keeps spinning around and keeps spinning around, and all that cold air starts to leave out. Well, that's what causes Arctic air to hit the Northeast. It's a very, very powerful cold air, and it just brought a lot of deaths. 30 deaths due to hypothermia. And it was a serious, serious polar vortex that brought the worst records since any single kind of cold front that hit here. It might get even worse if we head to the next winter year. Who knows? This cold front is one of the history books known as my shivering Valentine Day commitment of this polar vortex name known as Nolan. It was one of the most powerful cold front. It covered about more than 40 states. It was supposed to cover 30 states, but now it's 40 states because of how massive it is. It was 2,000 miles wide. That is huge of cold air, huge amounts of cold air. And Florida was getting a little touch of it, and that caused a lot of cool air sitting around for Florida. Temperatures was 45 to 50 degrees. Breaking down record for Florida. Cold, a little cold, not as really extremely cold. That's not what I'm trying to say. It was really cool, broke record of cool air. It was known as a cool front for Florida. Meteorologist James Baker introduced that the cold front that hit in Florida, it was known as a cool front, a super cool front, because it broke the record of temperatures going down to 45 degrees in Florida. That's like close to like feeling like it's fall. Literally. It was a really massive cold air. Everyone felt it. It was really bad. Even I felt it. Frostbites came. Heavy freezing spray came down with strong winds of gale wind. It's a cyclone air. That's what a polar vortex is. And it's like a hurricane. That's why many people say that it's like a hurricane, because of gale force wind gusts. So that's how Nolan hit the Northeast, with a lot of cold air, moisture, low pressure, and guess what? The high pressure from yesterday was not a normal type of high pressure. It was known as a abnormal high pressure. What is a abnormal high pressure? Basically, an abnormal high pressure is part of the participation with the polar vortex. It's basically when it's sunny outside, it's beautiful, but it's freezing outside and it feels like it's a low pressure. And it's dangerous for outdoor activities because of the frigid cold air. That's what an abnormal high pressure is. Hope you guys like this video. That's broke the record since 1992 for New York City. Boston, 1993 from 1983 broke the record. This was a very cold air that hit since all the 90s, but this was even worse. Cold From Nolan was even worse. So hope you guys like this video, and peace out. And I will record that little winter storm that we have, and I'll check you out in the previous updates.